Okay, the bad news is in the Attorney General Keith Ellison elevated the charges against the rest of the officers who were doing their job uh, in keeping order and keeping this guy George Floyd restrained. For doing their job, the officers are going to get charged with murder. With murder. Okay. This is where we at in this society, where we let the militants, we let this black radicals dictate what justice is. I mean, you have this working class cops who deal with the worst of the worst of society. When you see this criminals, the first thing you do is, well, I mean, half of the time you don't even get out of the house. But most of the time, you just avoid them. You don't talk to them. You cross the street. Cops, on the other hand, have to deal with it. Have to put actually restrain them. Can you imagine? Now, there's no doubt that this George Floyd was sick. He had problems, just like Eric Garner. He had heart disease, and you see a lot of these big guys, and most likely he was on steroids. He did porn. He was a football player, so he did steroids. And people who do steroids, especially if they're big, and this guy was bigger than big, all because of steroids. It affects their heart. You may get muscles in your legs and your arms and your dick, but your heart and your diaphragm and other internal muscle also get big, and that's no good. You don't want your heart muscle to get too big, and that's what happened. So this guy died because he was sick. He had other problem. We all know he had problem. The autopsy report is bullshit because they just it was politically motivated. But we know the guy was a drug addict. We know the guy had problems. Uh, and so you know that's the reason why he died, not because of the officers, these working class heroes who have to get up every day. Can you imagine being an officer in this country nowadays? You got to get up and you got to deal with these vicious criminals, and then if you don't treat them with white gloves, um, they charge you with murder. Can you imagine being an officer being charged with murder? These are the people that prevent murders. These are the people that if you have any problem, and by the way, in most cities, the vast majority of the 911 calls are made from black areas. Black areas. In New York City, for instance, over 90% of all the 911 calls are made from hoods, black hoods, okay? Because they're shooting at each other, knifing each other, stabbing, robbing, raping each other. So they call the cops. And then they can't wait until somebody says some bad word or puts their hands on them, and then they sue the department, they sue the city for millions of dollars. And you know what? With the Jewish lawyers that they hire, they always win. They always win. And guess who pays for it? Guess who pays? The very same people that vote all these liberals. Now, this is Minnesota. Minnesota is like the most liberal state, the most Democrat state in America. They haven't voted Republican since 1972. 1972. Everybody there is a liberal, radical, left wing Democrat. Now, so they talk about racism. Kind of like, whose racism? Yours or mine? I mean, you mean you haven't fixed it? I mean, you've been in power for the past 50 years and you haven't fixed it? I mean, why do you tell me that we have to fix racism when your state has been in your hands? You've been in charge. You're the man. You've been the man for the past 50 something years. Don't tell me we got to fix racism. I thought that's the reason why they voted for you. But anyway, so here we have now for this George Floyd. They're treating him like he was about to discover the cure for cancer. But they don't talk about the victims of the white victims of black crime, like Tessa Majors, who was brutalized 18-year-old white girl brutalized by blacks in Central Park, New York, and then Katrina Josephson, who was got on a Uber car. She was taken by this black driver in a secluded area, raped and murdered. I mean, and thousands of white people who were murdered. So now this George Floyd guy, who he was just days away from getting a Nobel Prize in in the sciences. We have to go through all this nonsense. Go figure.